Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Pearl. As you can tell, I am not Pearl. My name is Karsta. I am very close friends with Pearl, and I'm going to be your guest host this week on this episode. Super quick background about me. I am a mindset coach, #1 international best-selling author, personal development expert, motivational speaker, all the things personal development, helping women to step out of and away from the expectations that are keeping them stuck in what I call fine, in air quotes, so that they can create their definition of something epic. We are here this week with Petra Williams, who, let me find her bio. Pearl's going to kill me. Dan, edit this out. Petra helps soul-searching people turn negative emotions, conflict, not-enoughness into confidence, peace of mind, and thriving relationships. Most clients come to her to increase the quality of their relationship, to deal with negative emotions, and to raise their self-confidence. She guides them through her signature program, Love Your Demons, and private coaching. She's a certified master coach of 10 years who creates transformations on all levels of consciousness, from mindset and behavior through emotions and body to unconscious reprogramming. Petra is an international award-winning public speaker, and at home, she's a wife, mom to 2 toddler girls, and a stepmom. Petra, welcome to Conversations with Pearl. It's so great to have you here. Thank you so much for being here and for your patience with the little change up we had today.
Thank you very much for having me. I know already that it's going to be a pleasure.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I read kind of the formal bio, but let's hear it from you. Who are you? What is it that you do?
Who am I? I think I am a person who struggled with a lot of boundaries, struggled with people pleasing, and I'm still on a journey of healing that. And it was interesting to listen to you actually about yourself, because it really touched me when you said you guide people away from life by expectations. Because this is, I think, somewhere where we meet, because it's also a big part of my story when I found myself looking back, trying to fulfill some sort of expectations that I think I put on myself, that my mind created, that this is someone who I want to be, or this is someone who I should be, or the world needs me to be this kind of person. And I put myself in that box and I tried to go by that, and it didn't work. Right? It's a long story short, it really didn't work. So I'm so excited to share with Pearl today all things about this journey, self-care, and how to really create the life that feels like your own. And there are healthy boundaries if you want them, and there's this grounded self-care and grounded confidence that maybe doesn't shout out out into the world like, look at me, how amazing I am, but you can just feel it deep inside. You're beyond good enough or not good enough or worthy, and that just radiates within you and outside of you.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's so beautiful. I always tell people it's your definition of whatever. I always say, I use the word epic or extraordinary. It's your definition of that, right? Like you just said, it doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be adventures all the time. As a business owner, it doesn't have to be 6 figures every month doing all the things. It's whatever you want it to be that has that. I'm getting tingles thinking about this, right? Like what it is that you want to feel confident in, as you're talking about. I love that so much. That's so beautiful. And our stories are very parallel. Perhaps you and I will have a conversation after the episode. So talk about how you made that transition, how you went from having really loose boundaries that didn't feel very aligned with you to sort of finding and living your purpose.
I'd say that Well, the story isn't finished. I'm pretty sure that the story isn't finished. And yet there's a significant difference between where I started, let's say, how I remember myself being a child or being a teenager or a young adult, and the way I live my life now, the way I hold myself, think of myself or other people. And it's just such a continuous journey. Thinking back, there have been many big milestones, to be honest. Just the other day, I was talking to my friend, and she just said, "Oh my God, you're so young," because I'm like relatively young, and you've already done all these things. Because like I was married before, I got divorced, I'm married now again, and I have these 2 kids, and I'm originally from Europe. Then I moved to be with my husband to the UK. Then I moved to be with my husband in Australia. But where it really starts, and where I put kind of the first milestone, was, I grew up thinking I don't want to burden other people with my negative emotion. I don't want to burden them with my pain or with my suffering, because that will make them feel bad, right? I don't want to make people feel bad. And so I did not learn how to really express my anger, my own frustration in a healthy way. But of course, that doesn't mean I wasn't angry or frustrated inside. And this would grow and grow until one day, and this is when I'm in university studying law, that I found myself throwing up on purpose. Not to lose weight, but to release the tension that I could feel inside. That I, like, at that point, I felt like there's this huge burning ball of anger within me, almost like anger with the whole world. And I couldn't let it out because I didn't know how to let it out in a way that wouldn't burn bridges or just hurt others potentially, or hurt myself. So here I am, totally judging myself, like, what a stupid thing to do, right? I know this is not good for me, and yet I didn't know any better. But and I felt the momentarily release. So what I started to do was, when I felt the tension inside, I would actually eat so that I can throw up.
Just
And
to
this
get
one,
to get those emotions out.
absolutely, that's the thing, right? You need to let it out. But if you don't allow yourself to say it, to speak about it, and to speak to who you're angry with, to feel safe in expressing your anger, etc., then you'll find a way, right? Because eventually you will have to, right? And one of the dysfunctional ways that we do that is that we turn that anger and frustration towards ourselves, and it becomes self-harming in one way or another. So, of course, I saw that this is not working for me. So I found a specialist. So I actually found a psychiatrist to talk to, and she helped me recognize how it works, and work through kind of the first layers, to really get into, let's say, normal, or more closer to normal. And this is already when I was on a personal development journey, because I was actually really lucky, because with personal development, the early stages of like positive thinking and whatnot, because I was 18 years old when I got into that. And I thought, oh, this is amazing, right? This just feels so good. It's so fascinating. So all these books, all these seminars, I would travel to have that. But just to digest it in this way, like reading books or listening to people speaking on conferences on mindset, didn't make the difference. Like, even a few years into this, I find myself in this position. And then at the end of university, I attended this 2-day, highly experiential, transformational event on personal power, on overcoming limiting beliefs, all of these things that included fire walking, highly
Wow.
experiential. And I felt like after these 2 days, I jumped to a completely different orbit in the way I work in all areas of my life. And I felt like this is so amazing. I just want everyone to know about it. and I just want to be a part of it. So because there was a possibility to just come next time and help out, just help out to the training team, be a part of that. So that's what I did. I just stayed in that environment, and over time, that environment became crucial for me. So what I see now, and what I also talk to people a lot about, is not just about do that coaching program, or do this event or that retreat, and probably chances are you'll feel better. But it's really about staying in an environment that actually supports the change that you're going through and the change that you want for yourself and your life. I don't think I would be where I am if I just went back to, quote unquote, my previous life or my normal life. It was absolutely crucial that these people actually became my new best friends. And, one of them became my husband. So I became really, really close with the environment that was all about being honest with yourself, about your patterns, about your thinking, about your emotions. And, that was so different for me in the beginning. I would look at them having conversations and thinking like, wow, that's so different than what I know.
Yeah. And I think that that's where a lot of people get hung up and people always use the word stuck. I'm stuck. And it's because to face that shift right there is the biggest one, right? Because it might mean having difficult conversations with family, with friends. It might be creating those boundaries, like you talked about earlier, loose boundaries, but it might be creating boundaries where those people aren't as part of your inner circle as they were before. And it might be changing your environment. All the hard things happen so early in the journey, I think. Right. And so many people, I think, get stuck in that, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. I can't do this. How did you overcome that piece of it?
I really think that what matters is to have at least a part of your environment being this supportive bubble that you can go to
Yep.
to remind yourself of your own inner power, right? To remind yourself that actually, wait, it is possible to have these open conversations. And yes, it is hard. And yes, there is a way to do it. And it's worthwhile. Remind yourself that the payoff is so big. It is, yes, it is hard and it's challenging, and your body may shake and you may cry through it, right? That's how hard it is. And it may take you a couple of years to even be able to do that conversation, to have it. And that's okay. I don't want it to make it sound like, oh, this is something you discover and then a couple of months later your life is different.
Right.
What we're talking about, like the event that I said I attended, that was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And then I haven't stopped working on myself since, in this deep and profound and experiential way, really, not just like reading books and stuff, but actually putting yourself out there, out of your comfort zone and learning. And then I went into neurolinguistic programming and exactly, and doing these things, right? Using it. And then radical honesty. I attended this workshop, completely changed the way I talk to people, right? And I got into shadowing. That's the core of my work right now that I do with people, really integrating all the parts of ourselves. And this is what I think my journey is all about. that I was denying myself parts of myself that I didn't feel were worthy of being seen or loved.
The darker sides, right? That's why they call them the shadow sides, like the things you don't love about yourself.
Well,
Right?
funny enough, yes, there's the darker side to us, and there are all the gifts and potential, that they say there's the hidden potential inside of you. That's also in your shadow because you don't see it.
Yeah.
So seeing all of that is a huge journey. And when you say when you asked, how to overcome that step when you already know you want to change either the boundaries you have or relationships, or have this challenging conversations, I don't think I would be able to do it by myself.
No,
Because if you were able to do it, you would have done it by now.
exactly.
Right.
Right. I
So
think we live in such a world of instant gratification, right? Like you said, like a lot of people will go to the conference or they'll read the book, whether it's personal development or physical wellness or any of it, and they do the one program or the one thing, and then they expect that instant, like, okay, now my whole world's going to be different. And it's like, boy, you haven't even scratched the surface. Like, you've just triggered your brain to say, ooh, I think I can expect more of myself. Like, that's the very first step, is just to acknowledge, like, ooh, maybe there's something more for me out there. But it is such a long process. And for people listening, I don't want to discourage you to say like it's long and hard and arduous, but I also think there's a reality to it that, like you said, you've been at this for 12 years. I'm on probably year 5 of my journey, heading into year 6. And think about the number of years it took prior of loose boundaries, of poor self-talk. Like you said, you started your journey at 18. That's 18 years of, I started my journey in my 40s. I had 40 years of misaligned, unproductive, unhelpful, unhealthy thoughts and patterns and behaviors and habits and all of those things. It's not going to happen with one book.
yes.
Right?
Yes. And yes, so like you said, you don't want people to be discouraged by this. Possibly may take a long time, but there's also the part about how rewarding this is.
Oh,
And I think that's why it's so intriguing. And I think that's why once you've had a taste, you don't want to go back. It's like, you just can't go back because you can't unknow, you can't
right? Yeah.
forget to, like, oh my God, this actually feels so good. And that's how you move forward. And that's how you stretch your comfort zone and become more and more confident in saying what you really want to say. And of course, there's there's so much inner work to it, which then allows you to take the action. And that still doesn't mean that the action is going to be super easy and simple. Right. I think there's such a misconception that I see a lot now out there, like, just become really aligned, just become like energetically aligned, and then it's all smooth and easy. And it's like, well, it's
there's still work to do.
There's still work to do. And sometimes even, and I love people who say that even the fact that they feel fear about something means that they want to go there. Yeah. Right? It's just like, I already know I want it. I just have the fear around it because it's unknown and new and all of that. But you can feel that it's worth it, that the payoff is huge, because once you allow yourself to, like, say to your partner, right, or your parents, that's a big one, right, or parents,
really big one.
that's to say what you really wanted to say, to set a boundary in a way that feels like inside of you aligned, like comes from a place that I know this is really the right thing to do and it's good for me, and it's actually eventually good for everybody.
Right.
They might not see it in the beginning.
Get to be the best version of yourself within that relationship, right? And I always tell people, at least I believe, Boundaries are more as a reminder to me about what I'm willing to accept and tolerate and allow into my space, either my physical space or my energetic space. It's less about, because I've run into clients where they feel like they have to have this big sort of come to Jesus conversation with somebody about, these are my new boundaries now. I'm on this journey, and these I don't ever seem to find that helpful. Like, yes, there's going to need to be the conversation, but it's really more in those moments when that person is pushing a boundary, but you've set the boundary for yourself, right? I sort of always envision myself in this bubble. And when somebody's sort of encroaching on my bubble, that's when I need to have the conversation about, you know what, I'm sorry, but that's not going to work for me right now, or, whatever the conversation needs to be. But it's not about keeping people out. It's just about sort of protecting yourself from that.
Yes, and tell me how great it feels when you hold it, right? What?
And how they respond to it, like family, right? You
Mhm.
said is like the hardest conversation to have, but to have those, and they don't always have to be hard and confrontational. Sometimes it's just a matter of stating something,
Yes.
but to look at those relationships now and know that I, again, still on my journey, right? We all are forever and ever. Um, but to look at those relationships now and know that I am more my true authentic self inside of those people that some of my closest family members, and they've never seen the true me, and now they get to experience that, that's really powerful, and it feels so great to have people witness you as you are, not who you think you should be or who they think you should be, but who you are.
Yes, and that's one of the biggest payoffs that we get for it is that, like you said, now these people can see who you are better. They know what you stand for, what you want, what you like, and what not, and they're still here. And this is a huge experience. People we love being, we crave being loved and accepted as we are. But unless you show people what that is, you don't even give them the chance to do that.
Yeah.
Right? We don't give them the chance to love us the way we are. So there's a big part how we co-create this experience. When you talk about people pushing on the boundaries, etc., there's always so much you can learn from these situations. Just by asking yourself, how come, if that's something that happens to you often, how come that people push your boundaries so often? Why don't they do it to someone else? What does that mirror to you? There's clearly a lesson to learn. If your boundary, for example, was set but keeps being crossed or doesn't feel respected, and really learn about, so there's an issue with respect here. And I look at the world that you experience in your reality, everything as the mirror of your own consciousness, right? So it's not them doing this to me, they're just mirroring a part of myself. So if there's, let's say, lack of respect towards a boundary, how does that mirror lack of respect within myself? Where do I not respect my own boundaries? Where do I not respect my own word, my own needs, my own wants? And that's the work you do. And suddenly you experience less disrespect from the outside because you just don't have to experience it anymore. And these are the biggest changes that I've had in reality. Like when you're getting crazy about a person or a relationship, right? It just drives you mad because of all these things that keep happening. But then doing the inner work around it, really owning that there's nothing I can do about this person. Like, absolutely nothing. I've tried X, Y,
Nor
Z.
is it
I've
my
tried.
job. That's not my job,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. But it's natural that we try to improve the relationships in one way or another, right? Like, okay, then maybe I just talk to them this way, or maybe I just talk to them less, or maybe I share more with them. Like
Yeah.
we try different strategies. And when nothing seems to work, like why is the trigger still coming up, well, you work it within you. You integrate the gift and the learning from the situation. And guess what? Your experience just changes so much. I would not even believe it if it wasn't my own experience. But honestly, someone who used to absolutely drive me crazy and take so much of my mental energy and just sucking the energy out of me, so to speak.
Yeah.
Once I completely owned all of those triggers and did the work around it, I now see them, and I see them laughing or being happy, and I'm genuinely happy for them. And it's not even a part of my life anymore, because it doesn't need to be, right? It's so on that journey you have like baby steps when you start, and when you mentioned self-care in the very beginning, I think this is a huge part of self-care that is usually not talked about.
Yeah.
Self-care is also how you care about, how you not just look after yourself, physically and all of that. That's great, right? Meditate and do yoga and have bubble baths or massages. That all is very nice and great. And also how you care about your emotions and how you care about your mental and emotional needs, and how you attend to yourself, how you speak to yourself, right? How nice and kind are you to yourself, really?
Right.
That's the self-care that you do 24/7.
Yeah, we talked about this before we kind of started the episode, that, and again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about everybody wants this instant gratification. I get so many people often. I actually just contributed to a book that's coming out soon. Like, I have a 1-minute self-care strategy. It's really just a breathing technique, but everybody wants something quick and easy. They want to take a 30-minute bubble bath to like erase all of the stress of the day. And it's like, it's so much deeper than that, right? Like that stress or whatever they're feeling, it's so much deeper than that. It's so much more profound than that. And it needs more, like you said, more tending to than a bubble bath. Yep, the bubble bath is great. And that's gonna, that's taking care of you. But yes, it's being mindful of how you speak to yourself, being mindful of how you take care of your emotions and your energy and your all the things, your physical being, all the things, all the time. That's self-care, right?
Yeah, how you show up for yourself and how you show up in your relationships.
Yep.
And it's the mere art of self-reflection and self-awareness can bring you so much further on that journey. Because that might be that you have the bubble bath and just take it as a time to reflect on your day and the way you showed up. Not the way, everything else didn't provide to you and everyone else was, upsetting or disappointing, but how you showed up. And that might be that you pat yourself on the back and tell you about how proud of yourself you are for, just doing this today, or getting through your day, or getting your kids to school on time. Or you realize that, oh, actually, I was kind of a jerk to my partner, and I was really passive aggressive to my colleague this morning, and it's not even a thing about was it deserved or not. Like that's not the kind of a human being that I want to be, right?
And that isn't as a way to beat yourself up. So many people say, "Oh, I was," and then they'll say, "Oh, I was passive aggressive to my colleague," and then they'll beat themselves up about it. It's like, nope, it's just an awareness, so that you can handle that situation differently tomorrow when you're dealing with that colleague and they trigger you in the same way, because they probably will. How can you handle it differently, not even for them, but for yourself and your own well-being, right? So it's finding those behaviors that you do that maybe aren't serving your best interest, and just acknowledging that you did it, and finding ways to treat yourself better the next time.
Yes, I would say that from this point that there are two things I would say you need to do, but of course, like, there's nothing you have to do. But it's always an action outwards, depending on how much you care about this relationship. And the more you care about the relationship, the more you actually want to make amends. And you actually want to come back and say, if this is a colleague who is also a friend, or you just want to be a really decent human being and really model being respectful and self-aware, to come to them and to say, look, yesterday, this really wasn't on from me. I know, I'm aware I did this and it wasn't nice. And I'm sorry, I can see it now. And, my anger or trigger or whatever got the better of me. Not proud of it. And you probably especially want to do this in your closest relationships, right? That you care about the most. So with your kids, with your partner, with your dearest friends, because we will have quote unquote shortcomings with these people as well, right? So owning that, exactly like you said, not beating yourself up, but owning your responsibility. 100%, I did this. Yeah,
It's
not
very
proud of it,
empowering to
but there's
yourself.
no, absolutely, and that's the thing. It's so empowering, and it actually, like, they know you've done it, so it's not admitting,
Yeah.
something that
And
no,
there's no weakness in it. You're just owning it. There's so much power.
absolutely,
Yeah, everybody
absolutely,
knows. And actually, I might say, like, not owning it, not admitting to it is almost like you're hiding behind it, right? Like, oh, I'm just gonna
absolutely,
pretend I didn't do that. And then you're hiding, and then
yeah.
you
Let's
blame
just
it.
rub it under the carpet and
Yeah,
pretend it never happened. Well, that stays.
yeah,
I believe that stays somewhere in the relationship, and it will come up.
exactly.
Just like I heard yesterday in an interview, Jordan Peterson said, conflict avoided is conflict delayed and magnified.
Ah,
100%.
yeah.
So that's an action on the
Outward.
outside, right? Like, what can you do about the relationship? Well, you can actually talk to them about your realization, right? Again, it doesn't have to be a big conversation, just admitting it, right? Like, say one sentence or two sentences.
Yes.
So huge, right? And yeah, that just happened to me, I don't know, a couple of months ago, when I got really upset, and I was like, oh, you idiot. And then a few minutes later, I actually came back and I said, I'm sorry for calling you an idiot. And this person says, oh, that's okay. And I go, that's not okay. Like, I don't think you are one. And I don't want, to speak to you this way. I wouldn't want to be spoken to this way.
Right.
And yeah, okay, great.
Because that
And we're
becomes
good,
the other
right?
thing too. In admitting that, you're modeling for them what your boundary is for how you want to be treated. That's another component of that relationship. You're saying, listen, if you did this to me, this is how I would want you to respond. So there's that
Yeah.
piece too.
Absolutely. But you can't expect it from someone if you're not the one giving it either.
Yes.
And then there's this huge piece of what's here to do inwards. Because like you said, with the colleague at work, they might as well trigger you in the same way tomorrow. And that can be your partner, that can be your parents, right?
Yeah.
They will trigger you in the same way until you figure the trigger out. So why is this upsetting me so much? What's this behavior? And let's say, so that this is really practical and understanding, like easy to understand for people. What would you say is so upsetting? What would that situation be? What happens to you then?
Oh gosh. I get really triggered when people tell me I'm doing something wrong. Like if they ask me to do a task and then they kind of micromanage me doing the task. I get very triggered by that.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing that with me so openly. And now think about, inside, it's like, okay, they're micromanaging me. What does it mean about me? Like, what does what your mind says about it? Because your mind has a story around it, right? Why do they micromanage me? Do they not trust me? Do they not think that I'm good enough to do the task? that they gave me in the first place. So go really, really deep in, and these are probably thoughts you haven't shared with anyone.
Yeah.
Maybe you weren't even aware of them until now, right? But to really ask yourself why this upsets me so much. What do I make it mean about myself? Oh, that I'm not actually good at my job. Oh, they don't trust me. Let's say it's just that. They don't trust me. I feel like, yeah, why don't they just let me do it? If they don't trust me is the upsetting part, turn the mirror towards yourself. So how do I not trust myself?
Mm-hmm.
And also, how do I not trust them? How do I not trust others? So what's my relationship with trust as such? Because if this is a pattern that keeps happening to you, 100%, it's a mirror of your consciousness in one way or another.
Yep.
Right? If you don't experience yourself as trustworthy, then a part of you believes you are untrustworthy. And now owning how you are untrustworthy and what the gift of it is, and really these are the mind. I don't know if I can be explicit here, so I'll just say mindset shifts.
Yeah.
In like, oh, so I'm experiencing myself as untrustworthy. There's a gift to it. I do believe that how we actually move through triggers and bad emotions and experiences is to learn everything that you can out of them. Like, understand the gift.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the gift of being untrustworthy?
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Being untrustworthy.
Let's say, how about if you're untrustworthy, people don't give you the hard tasks. And if you really imagine like, oh,
Sure.
you're totally untrustworthy, I will not even put the burden on you, right?
Sure.
I will not even, let's say, share a secret with you.
Yeah.
So I will not burden you with that.
Sure.
There can be a real ease of very low expectations on you if you were like really untrustworthy.
Yeah.
Right? If we take it to the extreme,
Yeah.
then low expectations. That's not as bad, because with low expectations, there's more ease, right?
Sure.
I can only surprise in a positive way. There's less pressure on me to perform.
Sure.
That's nice. And I'll see, okay, this is something I'm experiencing. This is the gift that I need from this situation. And own how and where in your life can you actually use more of this gift right now? Where can I give myself more of this ease, of low expectations, and less pressure?
Sure.
And yeah, that's how you become more and more free.
Interesting, because when you first said it was low expectations, I found myself being triggered again, like, well, of course they can trust me. Like, of course they can expect more. But then I think of all the times in my life when I've thought and felt like, wow, I wish people didn't quite rely on me so much. So that's where that gift comes in. Like, okay, I can use this as an opportunity to take a deep breath and say, okay, I don't need to be the trustworthy one in every situation. Right? I can,
Yes.
yeah. Interesting. Ooh. Yeah, that's some good deep work.
Yes, exactly. And this is the heart of shadow work, really. So it's actually the way I see it and do it is really practical in these normal everyday situations, and to see how there's a wholeness to it, right? Because like you said, there are other situations when I'm like overly responsible and reliable and trustworthy, and it's actually heavy, right? That's also not all great and shiny and rainbowy. So getting more into that balance of it comes with owning the positives and the gifts to both of these sides. And once you know that, once you feel that deep inside of you, like on the level of your body, on the unconscious level, then you naturally are able to create more of that balance. Mm-hmm. What happens then? Maybe you don't even feel the need to speak to that colleague. about it because you've actually like worked it out, and it was like, oh, okay. If like about the trigger, you still wanted to talk to them about your passive aggressive behavior, but and maybe they'll stop being that way around you. Simply not because you set the boundary. You may do that if you want to, but simply because you worked it out within yourself. And this almost sounds like magic, but it works. Like that's the best part about this world, is about this work, is the reality check.
Yeah. You're getting
Your
yourself.
reality, absolutely. Like your relationships actually change. People almost change in front of your eyes. They change the way they behave around you, or they actually leave your life because they don't need to be there anymore because you've already learned this lesson.
Yeah.
And that's how you cut the dysfunctional patterns. That's how you get unstuck from this loop of, oh, why do I keep attracting the same partner all the time? Why do I keep meeting this kind of people? Like, everywhere I go, there's arrogant people or disrespectful or manipulating or liars or whatever it is.
There's a lesson in there. And until you
Absolutely.
learn it, they're going to keep coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I know Pearl's favorite question, because I've been on her podcast a couple of times. How have you become the shiro of your own life, the hero of your life?
I absolutely believe that it's through really owning all of these parts about myself that I didn't see before. And the first layer of that is to own your so-called darkness, the shadows, the parts when sometimes I'm a jerk and sometimes I'm, unbearable and passive aggressive and all of these things.
Yep.
And the next level, which really, let's say, tipped me over to feel the way you describe, is really owning my greatness as well. And this is so huge, and it sounds easy, like, oh, own your gifts or own your talents, right? Should be easy because it's positive. So what's wrong? And yet I found on myself and with many of my clients that's an even harder challenge to really own, embody how amazing you truly are, the way you are already.
Right.
There's nothing to develop, nothing to build or become.
Yeah.
But these parts are all already within you. Like everything you admire on other people, everything you get jealous of, thinking, oh, I wish I was more of that, is already a part of you. And really feeling this, owning this, and living this each day just completely changes the game for you in how you prioritize yourself, how you set your boundaries or not, how you do the self-care on all levels, how you experience your relationships, just everything. But yeah, I think this, like, some people call it, step into your queen energy, like, call it whatever you want, whatever works for you, but really owning yourself in your fullness, not just with the parts of yourself that you would previously beat yourself up for, but the parts of yourself that you would almost blow your horn for.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's also, we don't do that. That's not humble and nice.
But again, that doesn't have to be loud.
Absolutely. Like
right?
there's no bragging in accepting a compliment.
Who I am.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it would be so nice if we were to wake up to how awesome you already are. And yeah, not in a braggy way, not in a, just patting myself on the shoulder way, but that's the sense of the grounded confidence that I was talking about in the very beginning, the sense of self-worth that's unshakable by any circumstances. And it does not matter if you're successful with 6 figures or not, or if you're successful in your happy marriage with kids or not. It doesn't matter, because you were born this way. Like you were literally, like Lady Gaga says, I was born this way.
Yeah.
And you were absolutely born this way. Just look at babies.
Yeah.
Look at them and see how they're magical and just born worthy and whole and complete and amazing. And that essence is still within us. And I think seeing that essence, feeling that essence, being compassionate with yourself is the step much closer to how we want to feel.
Please share with us what you have. I think there's a free gift you have for Pearl's listeners, and then also how they can find you, where they can find you. I know she's going to put all of this in the show notes, but share with us for those that are listening.
Yes, thank you very much. So the easiest way to find me is either on Facebook, Petra Williams Coaching, or on Instagram, again, Petra Williams. And I was thinking, like, what would be the best thing to give to people? And I really couldn't choose for a long time between two, because, well, one thing, and I think, I just want to let people choose what's best for them, depending on where they are on their journey. And one thing is this absolutely wonderful short guided meditation, which is called You're Enough. And I've had people crying when they listen to it, just really feeling into it. It's absolutely beautiful. So that's out there and available. And then if you're looking for more like specific solutions for processing emotions and conflict in the relationship, I also created this mini training, like audio and worksheet guide, 4 steps from conflict to harmony. And this just works beautifully and helps you see all the layers of what actually happens in conflict that we're usually not aware of. All the emotions that are present, you should work through them. Once people have read this once, then they're able to do it within 30 seconds or a minute, on their own. I had a client saying, I had a fight with my husband. I just went to the bathroom, to do whatever I needed to do. And I went through those emotions because it's really simple. It's 4 steps, right? I went out of that bathroom, completely changed the way she normally speaks to him. She'd say, normally I would just stay silent for 3-4 days.
Yeah.
and then we just move on.
Yeah.
But I actually came back, started talking, sharing, being open about this and that, completely changed the trajectory of the conflict, ended up becoming closer, understanding themselves better, and actually the evening ended up happily. So really something really, really practical is this guide, 4 steps from conflict to harmony, that I also now offer for people to use.
Beautiful. Petra, thank you so much for your time today. This has been an incredible conversation. I've got so many things stewing in my head that I need to go sit with now. It's just from listening to you. So again, listeners, thank you so much for your patience and for listening to me today as your host instead of Pearl. All of the beautiful information about Petra will be in the show notes, and Pearl will be back next week.
Thank you very much. It was really lovely. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation just as much as we did.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Pearl Sharenza, and I'm with Women Successful Living. And I want to tell you a little story. You see, once upon a time in the middle of COVID, I noticed that more and more women were overwhelmed. We were having to balance households. We're having to become teachers. We're having to work our job while we're trying to become a teacher. We were sitting in our home with our children and our spouses or our loved ones and feeling overwhelmed. We were lost for where we're going to find space in our own house. So I was feeling that this overwhelm was stressing women out more, that they felt like they could not have a Calgon take me away moment. They felt like everywhere they turned, somebody in the house would find them, or their job wanted them on another Zoom meeting. And I just felt so sorry for these women as I spoke with them and felt the pain, because I too was feeling sorry. I was feeling sorry that I couldn't go out and do the things I love to do. I could go out, yes, and take a walk and sit on my front swing, but I couldn't go to the community meetings and the fundraiser functions or go have lunch with a friend or go to the movies with my husband or just take a moment away from everything that we're responsible for as moms and wives in our homes, right? You become that CEO mom and you're running a household. But then if you're working outside of the household, not only are you a CEO mom, and if you're asking what a CEO mom is, that's a mom who is running the household. Because let me tell you, you're not sitting around eating bonbons every day. You truly are running a business of the home. But then maybe you also work outside of the home. And here you are, you're trying to balance working in the home, working outside the home. And then maybe you have children and you're having to learn how to become a teacher because bless our teachers, they're trying to learn a whole new way of teaching through Zoom. And so as I spoke to the women in my community and my clients, I found they were also feeling all this overwhelm. They were becoming stressed. They were sitting in the home with all their children and their spouse, and they're going, I'm with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I love you, but I don't love you that much. Were you feeling that way too? So I found as they were feeling this way that I had to do something. And every day, about a month after into the pandemic, I decided to try something new. I decided to create a space where we could meet via Zoom. And yes, I know another Zoom meeting, really, Pearl, but I just knew that was the only way that we could get together. And the rule was you had to go in a room where you could put a note in the door and say, I'm on a break. I'm on a timeout. Whatever you want to call it, you could make that note on your door. Because really, we have to take time for ourselves in order to really take time and care for our family, our loved ones, and our job the way we know we want to and we need to. So what I did is I created what we called our self-care Sunday evening. And it actually became Shiro's is what we ended up naming it. Because we as women, we are the hero of the house. We're the hero of everything we do for our family, our friends, our job, whatever that is that you're responsible for, right? But are you really the hero for yourself? So that became important to me. So one day I decided I want to pour into these women. So I brought them together on a Zoom meeting. We met Sunday evening, 8 p.m. We finished up by 9 p.m. We just had conversations. What was challenging them? What was the pandemic bringing up for them? How were they doing mentally? Were they doing something to take care of themselves? And if you heard me before, I say bathtubs and taking baths are not self-care. But really during the pandemic, sometimes that's all you could do was get in a tub with bubbles and take a few minutes for yourself, right? So as we poured into them, I noticed that they were starting to enjoy the self-care. They were starting to be less stressed. They were starting to communicate better with their family and their loved ones because they could communicate why they were taking time for themselves. They were able to communicate that it's not that I don't love being with you. It's that because I love you so much, I need time for myself. So on Sunday evenings, we worked on things about self-care challenges. We created a challenge of self-care where every day they had to do something. It could be something that took them 1 minute, or if they wanted to, it could be something that took them an hour. But it was their job to do something for themselves every single day. And then because of that, they saw that their family, they were worried that their family might make them feel guilty. So we started incorporating ways that they could do self-care for ourselves as we also did something with our family, right? So in some cases, we found that we had moms sitting and just watching TV, silly cartoons with their children. That's self-care, right? Or maybe playing a puzzle game or putting a puzzle together. And then when it came to their spouses, we found that they were sitting and finding movies on Netflix or playing cards, or even we gave them a challenge. We have a friend that has these great cards. They're called Better Questions, Better Life. We even would pull a card and have a discussion with our loved one around that card. And then as they were working from home, some of our professional women were finding that their jobs were having much more demand on them, but because they were home, they could actually kind of have more time they could grab for them. Oh, well, you're home all day long, so you really don't need to take a break. So they started finding that some of their jobs and their bosses were expecting them to give more. So we talked about how to set boundaries around our schedules. We talked about how to set boundaries around how much we want to be on Zoom. And as we did that, we found that the women were less stressed and they were actually performing their job performance better. They were having better and more improved relationships with their loved one, with their children. And some of them also had family that were in nursing homes. So we were creative on how to spend that time with their loved ones, but also making sure that they were taking care of themselves. So as we did this, I saw that it was a need that needed to continue. So even though the pandemic is, as we know it today, is over, I found that the women loved this so much, we needed to continue this. And who knew that 3 years ago when I started this, that it would grow into what we have today, this amazing community of women that we still meet every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. We talk about things that bring us joy. We talk about challenges we're having in our lives. We're talking about things we're having to overcome. We have some women that are struggling in their marriages. We're talking about how we pour into them and how to help them work through communication. We have amazing, amazing guest speakers that come in every month. We've had Jane Pilger come in and talk up to us about our mind and the neurological part of our mind when it comes to our eating and our health and sugar and how it affects our body. We've had Seth Santora come in and talk to us about the smile method and how we have things such as just the smile within us that can make things like mock acceptance, where we're accepting things because we think we have to accept them. Like, for instance, my loss of my son, Matthew. I never knew that when I created this group 3 years ago, almost now, how much I needed these women. And because I have this community of women around me, I met Seth, and Seth taught me about mock acceptance. And he taught me that, yes, I was accepting the loss of my son, but I wasn't truly believing that he was lost. And I was sort of like going through the motions. So ever since I have put this group together, this community of women, we have watched the women flourish. We have watched them have less stress. We've watched them communicate better with their loved ones. We've watched them put boundaries around their self-care so that they can achieve the things they want to, so that they can put their cape on first as they pour into their family even better. And ever since we've started this self-care Shiro group, it has grown where we now at our retreats, we have women joining us during our retreats. We meet every year. We have a retreat in September. It's a pajama retreat. You come in your PJs, no makeup. You have about 4 days at the beach, sometimes the mountains, depending on the year. We just have sessions and breakout groups on how do we improve on our self-care? How do we continue to communicate our needs to our loved ones? How do we find what our goals are and our visions are, and how do we bring those to fruition? Because how many of you ever sat back and said, I have this big goal and I really want to do it, but nobody believes I can do it? I want you to know that we believe in you and we know that you can do it. And so if this is something that you want to learn more about and come and enjoy a great way to end your week and begin your week, I would love for you to join us, because on top of our speakers, we also have an amazing meditation coach where she empowers us to sit down and just take some quiet time for ourselves and just be in our own space as we reflect on what we truly want within. And I am so honored to watch the progress and the growth that the women in this community have accomplished. And I cannot wait to see what's coming up for all of them and hopefully for you. And if this is something you would love to learn more about, I would love to invite you to come and visit us one Sunday evening. Like I said, it's a great way to end your week and a great way to start your week. What better to know that you've got a balcony of people sitting and waiting for you to join them, have a cup of tea maybe, and just do some laughing, maybe a little crying, but no matter what, know that you've got a girlfriend there to have your back. So if you're ready to check out the Shiro League, I would love for you to join us. All you have to do is email me at pearl@wsliving.com. That's pearl@wsliving.com, and I would love to connect you. I hope today you know that we've all come into this world. We're a little oyster. We might be a little rough on the outside, but on the inside, you have a pearl. And I hope you find your pearl to greatness today as you become the Shiro I know you are.
Hi, everybody. If you like today's show, I would like you to tune in to Self-Care Shiros and check out Pearl's newest expert, The Mindful. This incredible individual is bringing you some incredible content. She's a published author, speaker, and podcast host. divorce and dating again expert. You can listen every Thursday at 9 a.m. at 360 Talk Radio for Women. Make sure that you visit the 360 Talk Radio for Women website and follow us on Instagram as well.